as I was writing it, like tears came to my eyes because I went back to that moment. I'm in that moment, and I remember sitting in the hospital with my mom, and this is the most quiet room, and it's just me, her, and then her husband, who had just passed away from a heart attack, and so I'm seeing these things, and I was like, no, let me take it out, let me find a different way to put the story out there. I'm going to take all this personal stuff out. And so I called my mom, and I was basically seeking permission, because it's not just my story, it's her story, it's his story, and our family's story. So I had to call her, and she gave me the green light. She said, go ahead, people need to hear the story. But the most difficult thing to do was to take all of those memories and all of that stuff that hurt still, like it still hurt, and put it on the paper and then reread it until the story was accurate, right? Keep reliving it and going back to it. But I think that it helped in the grieving process, but that was the most challenging thing about that book.
Were you scared for other people's reactions once you hit submit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is the tension right before you hit submit, and the world can see what you have. You've cried, you've shed blood, and everything over, right? And they have an opportunity to critique it without knowing the history, without knowing what has gotten you to that point. And sometimes it's harsh. Sometimes it's something that we don't want to hear. We want everything to be perfect.
Oh yeah.
We want it to be right and loved, but it was nerve-wracking for a little bit.
And I mentioned this kind of earlier, but you surprise the world all the time, and kind of like Beyonce, you just throw stuff out there out of nowhere. And you actually today dropped a bomb on the world. What is that bomb? That
bomb is the new book called Serious Gold Diggers Only.
There we go.
Yeah. It made its first appearance today, and it's an electronic book. It's an ebook about the structure for setting goals, and a lot of the readings that I do, I take a look at personality characteristics and the characteristics like integrity, honesty, and those things. Those are they're character traits, and then personality traits, right? Personality traits can be learned. So if you speak well, that's a personality trait, right? But if you are a person with a high level of integrity, that's a character trait, And so what I was trying to find in these books, and Strength Finder, and I read The Alchemist quite a few times. I just love the way that story flows. But we as people, we like it quick. We like it instant. We want our gratification right now, and 5 minutes sooner than
That's
what
right.
we think we want it, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that I had to create something that aligns with that thought process, right? Because if it's not easy, if we figure out, if we feel we can't use it, then we won't, And the power of having a goal is it gives you your why, right? We talk about developing your why. We talk about the structure, and you can apply to anything that you desire in this world. The structure of a goal is very, very simple. We go into the systems. We talked about that a little bit earlier. It's not as much about the goal as it is the system that keeps the goal afloat, right? If the goal is the car, the systems are the tires, the motor, the things that make the car what the car is.
Yes.
So yeah, we dropped that today, and well, it's the debut of it today.
So when's that coming? When do we get to read that?
We're building some momentum behind it right now. So it's not presently available to the public. A few special people will get to preview it first, and then within the next 2 weeks we'll be releasing it to the public.
And you also over the summer dropped the bomb, the Wealth Academy. Let's talk about the Wealth Academy.
Yes. The Wealth Academy is my pride and joy. It is.
Hey, don't tell Zoe that.
I know, right?
Zoe's
I hope my kids aren't listening.
Beautiful
Right?
little daughter. The smallest one of the two.
Right. So we saw an issue, and I saw an issue as first. I have my military guys in mind, my veteran transitions, and all the things that we're teaching at the Wealth Academy are things that I wished that somebody would have sat me down as soon as I stepped out of those yellow footprints and into the civilian world and understood that, okay, well, you're going to have to change the way you do relationships. You're going to have to change the way you look at your finances, and then you're going to need something else that you own. So we talk about the 3 pillars of prosperity, which is family, finance, and business, and that's better relationships, better bank accounts, and better business, right? And so our Wealth Academy is built on that. It's built on building better people. The simplest form of it. It's a life class with a focus on finance.
And can you touch on the structure? Because I know that over the once you introduced it to us, you had a kind of a deal going on. Not a deal. I don't want to break it down so simple as that. But you were offering your service for. You were offering it to people who just needed to grasp on. How did that work out?
It was trying to identify who our target audience was.
Gotcha.
And the challenge that we took on was that people are comfortable, and it's difficult. It's a challenge to get people to do things that are uncomfortable temporarily to get them the better end goal, right? And so we were like, okay, everybody needs this. Everybody needs to build better relationships with people, build better bank accounts, and then own a side business or a side hustle to some degree. And we teach you how to start that. And so we rolled it out, and then we see that not many people are grasping it, right? Like not many people are feeling like they need to have a healthier bank account or healthier relationships, right? And so we launched, and then we failed.
Yeah.
We failed. And bombs failed. So
hey, and for people listening, that is a very honest and powerful thing that a CEO of anything can say, because it's the clarity of, hey, it does not work on the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so to touch on that, a lot of people, go into that entrepreneurial space and they think, I have the best idea. I don't know why the world hasn't thought of this yet. Everybody's going to want this.
That's me every day.
Every day. That is right. And that's what I'm saying. This is an everyday thing, guys. So you're going to wake up and feel this way again tomorrow. True or fail.
Yeah.
Right. And so we bombed, and it was disheartening. You go through the process of failure, and you're like, okay, well, what? And I use this method called start, stop, and continue, right? So what were we missing that we need to start, right? And we were looking at the holes in our business and where we were missing people. Was the website having holes in it? Was it the enrollment process? Was it the information itself? So you go through and you start reassessing all the things that you thought were so perfect in the first place, and then you stop something. It's like, okay, well, am I sending too many emails? Am I too exposed? Because that's a thing too. You can be too much out there, giving out free content and that whole thing. And it's a supply and demand equation that you're trying to balance, right? And then what are we doing well? What was good? What is producing the outcome that we want, which is what we want to continue? So start, stop, and continue. But we finally started to hone in on our target audience, and we finally and it was like a light switch again. You turn on the light switch, it's like, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit of action over here on this side, so let me take a look and see what these people are, and that's identifying your target audience, right? And then we started getting more people because they were sharing it, right? So we were like, okay, let's make shareable content. The content needs to be shareable, right? If we're getting traction over here, let's put a little bit more effort over here. But I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, it does. It answers the question. And you know what? That could actually tie into how we live our lives. It's we say that the definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again, expecting the same results. And that ties into if you're out there putting resumes out on monster.com, 16 hours a day, and you haven't got a call back in 3 months, you need to step back and reevaluate what you are doing. That is just the process. This is a process of growth. There is a process to growth. If it's funny, I just thought of this off the top of my head, but I was watching a YouTube video of how a vine climbs up the tree, and what it does is there's the vine, this small little vine will just keep, and fast forward this show, it will just keep wrapping around over and over and over again until it grabs onto something, and then it climbs up then it finally climbs up this tree or this ladder. But it's sitting there for days and days, maybe weeks, just wrapping around in the air like, hey, let me grab onto something. But that's what you're talking about. You're saying that,
absolutely.
This is a process of wrapping around and reaching out and trying to figure out what does work, and it doesn't all work, and you can't force things to work sometimes. And then the stuff that does force, it's unnatural, and you're going to find yourself not exhausted. Exactly. So, kind of going into the back end of transition. If you could redo your transition, what would you do differently?
I learned this year about VSOs.
Okay.
And that's
VSOs are veteran service officers or organizations. Right. VSOs are the organizations such as the DAV, the CalVet here in California. You've got AmVet. So those are the organizations that outside of the VA can help you the same way the VA can help you. Just the lines aren't as long. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they fight for you.
That's right.
We come out of a place where we've got brothers and sisters in arms that would fight any battle for us, to a place to where it's just us. It's just us fighting our battles and hoping that we know what battles are the ones to be fought, right? So we need allies, even in the civilian world, where it's somebody who's going to be looking out for our best interests, somebody who is knowledgeable and looking out for our best interests, which that was something that I was missing, and I got out in 2005, and here we are 2016, and I recently learned about it. I would have done that a whole lot sooner.
Yeah.
Whole lot sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so to kind of add to that, again, to everybody listening, you're talking, when I got out, I went to the Disabled American Veterans, not even having a disability rating at the time, but they were a door that was open near the VA, and they significantly just walked me through the whole process. My medical records were still stuck in Okinawa, and they reached out and got those, and then they got me all my my appointments for my back and whatnot, and changed my marital status and all this stuff that we don't know how to do, and then we don't know is out there. Like, I learned that we're able to be buried basically for free. I know how morbid that sounds, but when a person passes away, that's an expense on your family. But as a veteran, I learned through a VSO that your family does not have to take that on anymore. So there's a plethora of knowledge through these VSOs, and I'm happy you said that, because I'm actually working with the DAV right now, but that's